Do you know when the next best time for you to plant a tree is? It's right now. So that way you can know, like, and trust. I want you to think of something as a funnel. As I talk about these three things, meeting face-to-face, social media, and thought leadership, I want you to be thinking of a funnel.
Most hosts never achieve the results they hoped for. They're falling short on listenership and monetization, meaning their message isn't being heard and their show ends up costing them money. This podcast was created to help you grow your listenership and make money while you're at it. Get ready to take notes. Here's your host, Adam Adams.
Hey, podcaster, if you are a business owner, if your podcast is attached to your business in any way, then you definitely need to be thinking about how to be holistically strong with your business, holistically strong. And the way that we do that is to make sure that it is not just your podcast. It has to be a little bit more. If you're just joining for the very first time, my name is Adam Adams. I'm your podcast coach, and I want to support you to be able to have the most successful podcast that you absolutely can. Recently, I was asked to speak for a big conference, and for this group, they are real estate investors. And one interesting thing about these real estate investors is they buy a lot of big properties, but they don't do it with their own money. So here at this conference, I'm talking specifically to real estate investors. But if I say an operator of, let's say, a general partner or an operator, that just means business owner. As I share these three tips that you need to know to be able to help you be holistic, I'm going to be thinking about and pulling from this presentation that I did in front of several thousand people. And I want that to be something that really benefits you. I need it to be something that really benefits you. You need it to be something that really does benefit you. And we're going to be talking about the 3 pillars of influence. And I'm going to share it as if you are an operator. That means a general partner or somebody who runs the real estate deal and has other people as your limited partners that are passive investors. It also works if you're a coach and consultant. Just think of yourself as that coach or consultant. Either way, this is going to work. And it's going to be pulling from some wise advice that I got several years ago from somebody named Gary Vaynerchuk. So this is how the presentation went. And I want you to think about any piece of the presentation that you hear that you're thinking, does this really resonate with me? Yes, it does. You just have to tweak if you're this business or that business. So let's dive right in. Do you want to make it easier for yourself to raise equity as an operator? Well, 9 years ago, this guy named Gary Vaynerchuk, or Gary V, he said that there was really 2 things that you really needed to do. He said social media, that was number 1. And he said podcasting. He said, if you want to be successful, you need to make sure that you are active on social media and that you have a podcast. And I want to take that a step further. I actually believe, and I've seen 3 different pillars. I've looked into the most successful people in business, whether that's real estate investing or anything else. And they are actually not going to do the 2 things, which are social media and podcasting, like Gary Vee said. They actually have 3 things in common. So in this episode, right now, we're talking about what those 3 are. And we're going to give you some stories to help really dive it in and hone it in so you really understand what it means and what it's saying. And then on the very next episode after this, then we're going to talk about one of those 3 pillars in great detail. And then the following episode, we're going to talk about another pillar in detail. The last of the 4 total episodes is going to be really that 3rd pillar in the detail that you need to make sure that you're going to be successful in a holistic way for your business. So with that in mind, I want to share with you what are these 3 things. I've seen not just the 2 that Gary Vee said, but actually 3. So I want you to take a minute. If you don't mind, just take a minute and think about the most successful people that you know in a certain industry. Who do you think of in your industry? Who do you think of in another industry? And you could probably guess, what are those 3 pillars? What do those 3 pillars actually need to be? What could they be? Well, I want to brief them to you right now. And then I have a true story to share with you about a guy who didn't follow Gary Vee's advice 9 years ago. And you'll be surprised at how bad things ended up for him. So the three pillars, in short, are meeting people in person, meeting people face to face. That's number one. The second pillar is social media. And the third pillar is thought leadership. And a lot of people that I might share these pillars with, and I've actually done this presentation, not just at conferences, but also additionally on other people's podcasts. And the three pillars, meeting in person, social media, and also your thought leadership platform, think of them, please, as a stool. You are going to sit on a stool, and it's a three-legged stool, of course. And what would happen if somebody came and chopped one of those three legs off? The answer is you'd fall right over. You couldn't balance on just those two legs. And I want you to be thinking of that, because the many times that I've presented this in the past to other people, the times that I've presented this, I frequently get the questions, well, Adam, if I only had to do one of those three, which would it be? And I say, you'll fall over. You will fall over. If you want to do one of the three, I'm sorry, but it is not going to be successful. You have to meet people face to face. You got to meet people in person. And when I say face to face, it means, yeah, you can meet literally in person, or you could meet on Zoom or Skype or whatever, right? You could meet face to faces, and that will still count as in person. And when we talk about social media, that is you being active on social media. And we'll talk more about Gary Vee here in a moment. And when we talk about thought leadership, that could be anything that has other people talking about you, even when you're not in the room. This allows them to be able to share your content when you're not around. A thought leadership platform could be your book. It could be a podcast. I'll probably focus more on podcasting because that's what I'm really good at. And your thought leadership platform could be, okay, a book, a podcast. What am I missing? It could be a blog, and it could be a YouTube channel. So it could be video, it could be written, it could be audio only, or it could be video, written, audio, and the other type of written. So a book or a blog. Either way, totally good. It needs to be one of those. So those are the three platforms. And I want to share real quick about this guy. Well, Gary Vee, by the way, says if you're not doing this by the year 2024, he said 9 years ago, he said, if you're not doing this by the year 2024, and wake up, we are, as I'm recording this, we're halfway past 2024. We're almost in 2025. 9 years ago, this genius. I mean, Gary Vee is pretty brilliant. He tends to make some really solid bets on things that are going to happen in the future. And he said, back then, 2015, if you're not active on social media, if you don't have a podcast, you will lose in business. And I want to share a little bit of why. It's because the meeting in person, the thought leadership, and the social media collectively help people to know you, like you, and trust you. It allows you to be the person that they think about when they want to work with somebody in your field. If that is raising money for private equity, for real estate deals, for syndication, you need to be somebody who has, you're talking to people in person, you are using social media, and you have your thought leadership platform, whichever you choose for your thought leadership platform. So what was that story? That story was back in 2019. So a few years after Gary Vee mentioned that you got to have this happening by 2024. And what's interesting is there was a guy who was raising equity, and he was already losing in business. He was already losing in his business. And the interesting thing, this gentleman, he came up to me. I was hosting a conference. I used to run conferences about helping people raise equity, to be able to support somebody so that it was easier on them to raise private money so that they can close on more real estate deals. And I had this guy, and he's an Indian man. When I say that, Eastern Indian man, who had been in syndication or apartment investing. He bought large apartments. He had been doing that for 10 years plus. I don't remember exactly because it's been a minute since I had this conversation. I just remember that he had gone, what they say is called full cycle. Full cycle meaning that basically he bought a property and he took it, all the way to the 3 to 6 years that you normally take it, and he improved it and then sold it for a huge profit. And he and his past investors made a lot of money. He had done more than 2 full complete cycles. So he had gotten people into his deal, and then he gave them their money back a few years later. And then he got those same people back into another deal. And then a few years later, he returned all their money plus a humongous amount of earnings. So his passive investors, his LPs or limited partners, were very, very happy with him. But as he got to my conference, he said this to me. He said, Adam, I'm in trouble. I have a deal that I need to close, and I still need to raise $2 more million. So that you understand, when it comes to this syndication thing, $2 million is not a lot of money to raise. It isn't very challenging. It is not very difficult to raise $2 million. And so I was surprised. I figured maybe he had raised 8 of 10 million and he just had 2 million left. And I was going to say, you are fine. This is what I said. I said, great. That's not bad. When do you need a close by? And he said, 2 weeks. I was like, ooh, 2 weeks, 2 million in 2 weeks. It absolutely can be done. You're kind of under the gun. I said, how much have you raised so far? And he said, I've raised $1 million. I was like, this raise is only $3 million? And he's like, yeah. And I go, well, how are you so far behind? It's interesting what this guy said to me. He said, all of my investors are now investing with people that have podcasts. And I'm like, what? He goes, yeah. And this guy was furious. He was actually upset because he knew that he had integrity. He knew that he had gone full cycle on multiple deals. He knew that he was doing things the right way. And he knew that he was been working with the same investors multiple times. And out of nowhere, his investors that he's had for a long, long time, they're investing with what he called newbies. He felt like they were newbies. He felt like they were going to lose the money. He felt like they didn't have the experience that he had. So why were his investors not investing with him? If he was so good, why were his investors putting their money with someone else? In this case, people, and you in your coaching business, you in your consulting business, you as an attorney, you as somebody who's raising equity, your people, the people that work with you and have always worked with you and want to work with you, to think about this. Think about 4 wheels. You got a car or a wagon. As when this came up, we were talking about wagons, but you got a car. It's got 4 wheels. And if one of those wheels is squeaking, if just one of them is making some noise, where are you going to put your attention? You're going to put your attention at the squeaky wheel. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. I don't know if you've ever heard that. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. And the squeaky wheel in this analogy right now is the person with a thought leadership platform. The squeaky wheel is the person who's staying in front of your investors, your clients. If you're not putting out the value that they're looking for, they are going to get it from somebody. And then that's the person who's going to get all of the money from that person. So I want to talk about something that I mentioned to this guy. I basically told him, I'm sorry. If you don't have a podcast, if you're not active on social media, if you think that you can just be hidden, you're mistaken. Gary Vaynerchuk has already said that you need to be active at this. And he said, if you're not doing this by 2024, you're going to lose in business. It's now almost 2025. And you need to be thinking of this. This guy was already losing out in 2019. This was November of 19. So it was right before COVID, before they had any issues of that. And other people, other podcasters were coming out with podcasts in his genre. We'll call it real estate. And now they became the squeaky wheel. And he was losing his investors left and right to what he called, as I mentioned before, newbies. Newbies who would probably lose the money. They didn't have the same integrity as him, perhaps. And your competitors might not have the same integrity as you do. And it's kind of your responsibility, isn't it, to ensure to be able to help and protect them while you also get to make some money as well. So I want to tell you what I told this guy. I told him that he was tough out of luck. And I used a tree as an analogy. Back then, I used an apple tree. I said to him, when's the best time to plant a tree? And he's like, what do you mean? I was surprised because I thought everybody had heard this. And I was like, when is the best time to plant a tree? And he's like, huh? And I go, the best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago. Had you have started your podcast 30 years ago, Had you have been active on social media, had you have been giving content to the investor that you wanted to work with all of this time, they wouldn't be running off to these newbies and potentially losing their shirts. But do you know when the next best time for you to plant a tree is? It's right now. Plant that tree right now. So that way you can know, like, and trust. I want you to think of something as a funnel. As I talk about these three things, meeting face-to-face, social media, and thought leadership, I want you to be thinking of a funnel. What is the main reason for a funnel? I was hosting another event at some point, and I went to AutoZone, and we bought 20 or 30 funnels, these big, giant red funnels. And we got these 5-gallon buckets of water, and then we got these pints of water. And then what we ended up doing is asking people to, we didn't show the funnels. We asked them to pour things from one thing to the other. And what ended up happening is, as they tried to get the pint of water that was sitting in a 5-gallon bucket, to get that to be inside of the pint again. It was easy, getting the pint into the 5-gallon, but it wasn't as easy getting the 5-gallon into the pint. Is there anything that you think could help you? Is there anything you could think would support you so you stopped losing all of this water? So basically, you stop losing your investors, you stop losing your clients left and right. What could help you to be able to make sure it gets into that pint? And somebody actually raised their hand and said funnel. And another person said, yeah, funnel. Funnel would be nice. Why didn't you bring funnels, Adam? And so I had my assistant pull out, I don't remember how many funnels we had, 20 or 30 of them, and started passing it around. Then we said, now try to get that water in there. And they were all able to do it. And what this funnel is doing is at the top of the funnel, it's wider. Okay. It's more open. That's the know part of the funnel, the most amount of people that know you. And down toward the bottom of the funnel, at the very, very bottom, that's the trust. Only the people that really, truly trust you are going to be working with you. And in the middle of the funnel, of course, it's the like. So at the top, know, and then in the middle, like, and then at the bottom, trust. Know, like, trust. So envision this funnel for a second with me and think of yourself trying to get that water from one place to another, or get your investors from one place to another. You need to build yourself a funnel. It has to be a know, like, trust funnel. When we're looking at a know, like, trust funnel, so you can have as many apple trees as you ever want, let's call that clients or passive investors, you need to have some sort of funnel. With that in mind, the top of the funnel is your thought leadership platform. Your thought leadership platform is what's going to help you to be in front of the most amount of people so that they at least know who you are. The second part of your funnel is your social media. The social media is that part where they have to decide if they like you or not. And at the bottom of the funnel toward the trust is meeting in person or meeting face-to-face if you're online. As people go through this, as people go to your thought leadership platform, they will be able to know who you are and then like and then trust. I'll give you an example of this funnel. So I was raising equity as well. I was raising private money from passive investors to be able to buy real estate. And we still own a couple of those. We're working to sell them in the year 2025. And so we've got a couple more buildings left. We want to sell them in 2025. Point is, when we did our know, like, trust funnel, on our know, on our highest amount, we had 6,000 and some odd people on our total email list. I'm not exactly sure how many people knew my name or know my name, right? I don't know the amount, but people that had subscribed specifically to be on our email list was about 6,000. Not a lot. We weren't having millions like a lot of other people do, but we had certainly more than a lot of people that might only have 100 or 1,000. So that was the people that kind of know us. The people that know us are at the top of the funnel. And now think, what was that like? How many people liked us? And that is how many people were willing to do something a little bit deeper. And in this case, it was that we had a list of passive investors that said that not only do I want to get your content, but these 700 people, let's call it 12-ish% of 6,000. I think it was 742, if I'm not mistaken. 700 and something people said, I don't just want to get your content, but I want to be involved in your next deal. I would like to be involved in the next deal that you close, Adam. 700 plus people volunteered for that. And then if we look at the amount of people that actually invested, we had about 60 total passive investors that had literally given us money. So from 6,000 down to 700, down to 6D. Same thing with this podcast, the podcast on podcasting. So we have several thousand people that listen. And then as far as the amount of people that are on the list is lower than that, maybe about 12%. And then the amount of actual clients that we have worked with, it's less than 200. It's 100 and something people have actually taken the step to say, not only do I want to, listen to your podcast, thousands, but I also want to work with you. And that ends up being somewhere above 100 to 200, right? Between 1 and 200 people. So be thinking about that. Not every single person is going to be your absolute perfect person. It might not be right for everybody. They might be wanting to get the content, but not have the money yet. It's going to be a smaller amount. So you need to be thinking about this as a funnel. Know, like, and trust. So we are going to talk about how can you do these things? But I'm going to go in backwards order. I'm going to go in complete backwards order. I want to talk about the trust part first because it's going to be the most impactful for you. So I'm going to be teaching you how to meet people in person, what to say in person. Basically, if you go from having them on your podcast and then meeting them, or having them listen to your podcast and then take action on something, how do you make that the most impactful? How do you host your own events? I ended up having one of the top 6 meetup groups in the world. You may not know what a meetup is. It's meetup.com. And I ended up being one of the top 6 meetup organizers in the world with meeting in person. So I had a lot of experience. We hosted several times a week. So we ended up seeing 8,000 plus faces a year. And I learned a thing or two about meeting in person. I want to share those with you. I want to share the interactions that you can do to get the most amount of value meeting face to face by getting away from some of the things that other people have lost their clients and lost their investors because they did it wrong. They listened to what is common practice, and common practice really doesn't work anymore. I want to teach you on the next episode, meeting in person. That's the trust factor. On the episode following that, it is going to be all about social media, how to use your social media. And we'll talk about some algorithms which end up getting you noticed a lot more than other things. I will also share with you, while talking about the social media in that episode, I'll also share with you ways. One of the things that we'll talk on social media is additionally, how do you make sure that you're even able to do it? Because a lot of people are afraid to be on social media. A lot of people don't know what to do on social media. And we'll get into a Gary Vaynerchuk idea as well when we talk about the social media and social media algorithms, because I want you to have the absolute most success that you can in your business, whether you're raising equity or getting clients. Your social media is important. One reason why, by the way, is because these days, one of the first things people do when they want to know if you're a real person is they go just look up your social media, and that's how they find you. And on the last video, the very last audio, very last episode, it's going to be the thought leadership. And like I said before, I'm going to focus mostly on podcasting because podcasting is really what I know. I've had one podcast that I got in the top 0.5%, 0.5% in the world. And then I sold that podcast, made a good amount of money. And then I was able to build this one starting 4 years after I started the first, and got this podcast currently also ranking in the top 0.5% in the world. And so the point to this is I want to give you some tips when you're doing thought leadership that are going to support you so that you can have the highest and best ability to get in front of the right person. So this episode is just to outline what is this whole thing about the 3 pillars of influence, reminding you that the 3 pillars, there is not a certain one that is more important. You need all 3 legs. If somebody cuts one of those 3 legs, you will fall over. We're going to talk about how to get this know, like, trust factor, but we're going backwards. And this is going to help you to be able to be more successful in your business. So please stay tuned, get a pen and paper out. We're going to be rocking it on this next episode. I'll see you there. You're not alone if you're ready to either get your very first affordable microphone or if you're ready to upgrade your equipment to some legit podcasting studio equipment. Because On all of the forums over the last few months, I'm seeing this all the time. Even my own personal clients that work with my team, they're ready to get that next microphone. They're asking us for it. Additionally, when I'm on discovery calls with potential clients, they're always asking for this stuff. Hey, what mic do you recommend? Hey, what lighting do you recommend? What webcam should I be using? So many questions. And so what we did, my whole team has put together a PDF so that if you're one of those people who is looking to either get your very first affordable microphone, or if you're ready to upgrade your equipment to more professional podcast studio equipment, whether it's soundproofing or whatever, we've got you covered by going to growyourshow.com/PDF. And you can download the PDF for free, or right there on the webpage is everything that you would have, and you don't need to download the PDF. Either way, just go to growyourshow.com/PDF, which will put you to the podcasting equipment that me and my team have personally vetted. I'll see you on the next episode.